Joining us now is Okpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinx. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. How are you? Happy Friday. Good morning, Tundu Abiola.
Good morning.
Happy Friday. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning.
TGIF.
Morning, TGIF.
Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe.
In the United States, technology giant Meta announced on Thursday that its platforms will allow Facebook and Instagram users in some countries to call for violence against Russians and Russian soldiers in the context of the Ukraine invasion, signaling a temporary change to its hate speech policy. While in Ukraine, bodies are piling up on the streets in the besieged port city of Mariupol, where starving residents have resorted to fighting each other for food in the desperate conditions amid constant bombardments from Putin's forces, which saw a maternity hospital shelled on Wednesday, killing 3 people, including a 6-year-old girl. Under sports, Super Falcons star Asisat Oshoala on Thursday signed a new contract with Barcelona, the La Liga and Women's Champions League holders. The 27-year-old Nigerian international signed the contract extension that will keep her at the club until June 2024. Asisat is a top scorer in the Primera Division this season, netting 19 goals in 16 league appearances, and was an integral part of Barcelona's 2020-2021 treble-winning team. Under entertainment, after more than 3 years of legal drama following Empire actor Jussie Smollett's claim that he had been a target of a racist and homophobic attack, a judge on Thursday sentenced him to 150 days in prison. During the sentencing, the judge branded Smollett a charlatan for staging the hate crime against himself while the nation struggled with wrenching issues of racial injustice. Smollett maintained his innocence and suggested that he could be killed in jail while serving his sentence. Finally, Emilio Delgado, the actor and singer who for 45 years was a warm and familiar presence in children's lives and a rare Latino face on American television as Louis on Sesame Street, has died. Delgado was a Mexican-American and got to play an ordinary, non-stereotypical Latino character at a time when such depictions were few and far between on television. For adults and children, he was 81 years old.
Me llamo. What? That means my name is. Introduce yourself, tell them your name. In Spanish or English, it's still the same.
May his soul rest in peace. Let's begin what's trending. In the wake of the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, a bill seeking to prevent public officers from sending their children to school overseas was rejected by lawmakers on the 3rd of March. The sponsor of the bill, Sergius Ogun, in an interview that has now gone viral, accused public officers of sabotaging the standard of education in Nigeria by sending their wards to study abroad. Let's take a listen before we come back for a discussion.
If you are a public servant, if you are a civil servant, you are a lawmaker, you are a president, you are a governor or whatever, and your children are schooling here, do you think they will allow ASU to go on strike, knowing that the children will not go to school? Will they allow the state of education, the infrastructure, the buildings to dilapidate the way they are today? They will not. It's simple. They will not allow it. But they have detached themselves from this process. It's them versus us. Them below there, whatever they get, that's it. Us, our children will go out there and get the basic education and whatever they need in life and all that. So that's the point we are trying to make by this bill. So if we are all in here as public servants and we don't have the luxury of sending our children outside, maybe we'll pay more attention. That's basically it.
Well, some of the lawmakers that rejected the bill were citing things like infringement on their fundamental rights of sending their children to school. But there's several questions here. It depends on like the budget and how much money do they earn to send their children to school. Some have all their children in school, Tunde Abiola.
Well, yes, it's been frequently said that Nigerian lawmakers are amongst the highest paid in the world, which is shocking for a country that's what now, number 2 on the poverty index. We overpay our lawmakers. That said, it can also not be said that all lawmakers who send their children in school abroad are doing that based on their salary. Many of them might have other streams of income. They might have had viable businesses before. It's the issue for me is when politician is somebody's only profession. That cannot be what you do to earn a living. Politics should be about service. So it's also to look at it from the perspective of an individual like Dr. Chris Ngige, who has been praised for sending all his children to school in Nigeria. But that's a choice that he made. So I think what the House of Representatives is trying to say is that it should be a choice. If you want to make that choice and send your children to Nigeria, you're really generally commended for it. But some of them do want to give their children the best that their money can afford. If they earn that money, they have the right to spend it as they choose. It's a tricky one. But for me, it's more of a moral issue than a legal issue. So this is how we get into murky waters when we try to conflate both. It's completely separate.
Okay, I think, yes, I borrow Tundun's statement that it's a bit tricky. Where Honorable Sergio Sogun is coming from is trying to reinvent the public service rules. Once upon a time in this country, you know, and those public service rules were still there, but once upon a time, they were enforced. And what it means is that if you are a public servant, you are not expected to live above your means. You can't be of a certain grade within the public service of Nigeria. You claim that you have your family living in the United Kingdom when you are earning a particular amount here. You can travel and you go with a retinue of girlfriends. I use the word retinue. You know, advice said them. But something went wrong with the enforcement of those public service rules. And people date it back to the civil service purge by the Murtala Mohammed administration at a certain point, when, you know, university lecturers were driven out of their, you know, residential accommodation, when civil servants who had been so devoted, you know, were told, no, it's time to go. We're trying to sanitize the system. And many of them who had followed these public service rules diligently suddenly discovered that they had nothing. A man who was living in an apartment in Ikoyi just woke up one morning, he had to go and live in Ajangbadi. You know, I don't know whether Tondo knows where that is. You know, so that created a problem.
Ajangbadi, why not?
And we're told, the narrative tells us that civil servants now began to look out for themselves. And that process, the aftermath of that, deepened corruption within the system. Every civil servant wanted to prepare for the raining day.
Right.
But those public service rules are still there. Nobody is enforcing them in terms of your standard of living and your income. Now, the second part of it is that in terms of principle, yes, I can understand where Honorable Sergio Sogun is coming from. He's trying to tackle the roots of corruption within the system. And he also is addressing the issue of education, that if public service servants don't send their children abroad, then they will be motivated to strengthen the education system in Nigeria.
And I think it's a valid point.
Whether there is a direct connection in that regard, it's difficult to enforce. The third point has to do with the freedom of choice. Okay, suppose you can afford it. If you are a public servant, there's nothing that stops you from having a small business on the side. There's nothing that says your wife may not have, you know, more economic power. And so if the family decides that this is the best choice we have made for our children, what kind of mechanism can the state put in place to control all of this? That would be very difficult. So even if the law were to pass, enforcing it will be extremely difficult indeed. How about public servants who serve, you know, wives and children live abroad? Okay, would the law apply to them that because they're public servants, their children cannot go to school in whatever part of the world they may find themselves in? So implementing it will be a difficult thing, but already, of course, it's been shut down by the lawmakers out of self-interest and also perhaps out of the realization that this will be a difficult proposal to see through.
But
Yes.
can I just say, public servants are only allowed to venture into agriculture. Those are the rules.
Well,
Strictly,
you have
those are
not
the
seen,
rules.
you have not seen university
only
teachers.
Yes,
you have
she's
not
made a
seen
very
other
valid
people,
point. They're only allowed
doing
to.
other things.
But I think Sergius also cited some examples because you mentioned mechanism of how they'll check. I think he said that they'll, have to submit their income so that they can vet it before you are probably allowed to send your children abroad to go to school.
So I think,
Fine.
Honorable Sergius Ogun, you might differ how he's going about it. Is making a very pertinent point. And the point is about the educational system in this country that has damaged. Dr. Bati and I were joking yesterday, and Mr. Feni was here, how you guys used to make jest of people that had foreign degrees. That when people go, in fact, the gist was, when people go school abroad, it's because they were not good enough academically. That if they were good enough academically, they'll get degrees from University of Ibadan, Ife, University of Calabar, and the likes. So people that used to school abroad used to be laughed at. The question is, what changed? The same Nigerian university that was held up as a beacon, the same university like University of Ibadan, that had the third best teaching hospital in the Commonwealth in the 70s, that the Saudi royal family will come and depend on our doctors. That same country doesn't have that facility any longer. Most of the medicine students in that country are now going to Ukraine to study. I'm sure in the 70s, the Ukrainian education system couldn't even dare be at par with the Nigerian education system. It shows that there's something amiss. But his slants to it is, let me tackle it head on, because these are the problems. The politicians, the civil service are the problems. And why? Because they look for an easy way out. And for me, see, it's not a bad thing to have an educational interface. President Clinton went to school in America, went to Harvard. He also went to Oxford. He went to Queen's College in Oxford. He didn't say because, oh, I got the best education in Harvard, I will still go. There's no big deal about going to other countries to study. But the problem is we have a terrible education system here while people are shipping their children abroad. So the question is, how can we holistically fix our education system? Can we look inwards? Can we rejig our dying educational system? Because something has to be done. And you see, the mode of funding education has changed. And that's why you see that ad infinitum, government and ASU will always fight. Because government will not be able to provide the money ASU needs. And ASU too has to remember that this is not the 70s, when Nigeria had a lot of that money that they can afford to give people chicken in school. And you can have meal tickets where you get to eat full chicken in school. It is not the same again. Education funding is a conversation we must have.
Yes.
People have to pay for it. Because, see, even if government gives ASU what they're requiring, 4 trillion or thereabout, there are still going to be pitfalls. It's not still going to be able to compete effectively with the best universities in the world. So how can we sit down and make that work so that Nigerian education can go back to the glory days? Now, based on choice, yes, people have a right of choice. But the question is, have we also thought about how to bolster our education system locally that will make it competitive enough? And the sad part for me is that people are not just even choosing the UK. They are not choosing England. They are not choosing Ukraine. They are choosing Benin Republic. They are choosing Ghana. They are choosing Benin Republic.
Right, unfortunately.
Those are the problems.
Very well said.
I hope that Honorable Sergius Ogun will represent the bill now that a debate is out there.
Yes, hopefully.
But Nigerians have been sending their children abroad for education since as far back as I think the 19th century.
But things have changed now, so,
so
it's
but
different now.
There will always be that.
Right.
That will always happen.
Yes.
But we need to do something, as Rufa has argued, about the education system in Nigeria. No doubt.
We'll take another story. Commuters on a Lagos-Ibadan train suffered a setback on Thursday after their train stopped abruptly because it ran out of diesel, according to a Twitter user, King Isaiah Obadore, who posted a video that has now gone viral. Passengers aboard the train were left stranded in a forest with unknown Chinese men as crew members struggled to refuel the train manually. Let's take a look.
A train, a personal train that you'll be using. This is how to refuel a train.
This is how to refuel a train.
As you can see, they are refueling a Nigerian train that stopped in the middle of nowhere. So in case you buy a private train, this is how you refuel. This is how you refuel. So in case you buy a private train, this is how you refuel.
All right, I had no idea you could do this. Refuel your train manually.
Yeah,
I mean, refine.
There's filling station now on the track.
I mean,
what's happening? This country is a joke. There's filling station on the track.
What is going on here?
You see, I'm sorry. If you get into a car, you will see the fuel gauge. Is it that nobody was checking the fuel gauge of the train or it wasn't working? Then you keep people in the middle of the bush where they can have kidnappers. What is happening? And then the next thing, some people will say we are building infrastructure. It's part of it, sir. This is part of the infrastructure they have built. Where have they seen in the world that fuel will finish in the train? The Germany, England, they want to copy with infrastructure. Have they seen something like this? Why do people keep disgracing Nigeria? Because when you ask, people will brag, say we've built infrastructure, we built Lagos-Ibadan expressway, but fuel used to finish inside train. Like Dr. Abati will say, we just beg them so that one day fuel will not finish when an airplane is moving. It's sad. What is this?
I mean, this highlights.
This shows. Oh God.
This just highlights
Nigeria is a
the
beautiful country.
For scarcity at this point. I mean, this is what's happening now because of the lack of fuel, lack of diesel, and all of that. Our people are left out to suffer this way.
No, according to two different reports that I read, the reasons, suggested for this embarrassment were that one of them, according to one of the stories, the train petrol diesel gauge was not working and the driver did not realize that. So he wasn't aware that he did not have enough to get from point A to point B. So that gauge was broken. There's another story that there was a backup engine. So when that original engine was emptied, the backup engine should have kicked in, but that backup engine was empty.
Of course.
So any way you slice it, somebody dropped the ball here. Yeah. And you know what is really upsetting about this is the amount of money, the billions of dollars that were borrowed to provide this infrastructure. We're all hailing railway in Nigeria in 2022. This is how backward we are. We're also excited to have functioning trains because for lots of people, I know people in like their 20s and 30s that have never seen a train work in Nigeria until this Buhari administration. So you borrow the money, the Chinese people come in, do all the construction, and then you hand over to people to manage these rail lines, and they drop the ball. And I'm aware that there are thousands and thousands of employees in the Nigeria Railway Corporation earning, and their wage bill must go into like the hundreds, maybe even $1 billion, hundreds of millions of naira is their wage bill, and this still happened. And anything could have happened to those people. I'm just so glad that this horrendous scene was resolved quite quickly. They didn't have to stay somewhere overnight, for example. Apparently it was an hour. But within an hour, anything could have happened with the level of insecurity in this country. So beyond being embarrassing, it was downright dangerous. And somebody was downright reckless here.
Dr. Abati.
Okay, well, let's just say that this should be investigated.
Yeah.
Somebody should be made to account for it.
Yes.
As they say in Nigerian parlance, heads should roll. Mm-hmm. This again is a clear demonstration of the crisis that we face with that, importation of off-spec fuel or whatever, or the oil production, oil refining, the downstream sector in the oil and gas, industry that we have in the country. Now, everybody is complaining about there's no fuel, there's no diesel, there's no aviation fuel. So that the other day, one lady decided that one way to address the problem was to distribute fuel in jerry cans as souvenirs at a party.
Horrible.
So there is no better description of how difficult the place in which we have found ourselves is. So first recommendation, there should be an investigation. The second thing is, isn't this about the maintenance culture in Nigeria? every good thing in Nigeria eventually will go to waste because nobody pays attention, nobody celebrates. I mean, the functioning of the railway sector is one of those major achievements that people have been praising the Buhari administration for. That, okay, the government inherited this and then moved, a few steps further, and everybody has to say, oh, it's good now that the railways are back. But to hear that the second engine is not working and that, fuel finished,
the second
which means nobody checked
empty,
whether there was fuel or not. Yeah. Even if it's a gauge, that means nobody considered the fuel gauge in the train important enough to address it. And I've made the point. Ojinika. Yes, you have traveled to many places. You have lived abroad. Yeah. Okay, this train stopped now, and people are taking a drum and they are taking cables and all of that to put fuel. Do you have an idea if this were to happen with an aircraft? From maybe Lagos to Abuja, where would the aircraft park for refueling to be done? Because in Nigeria, don't rule out anything.
But Dr. Abati, you can refuel in the air. Fighter jets refuel in the air, so maybe you'll get a fighter jet to come and refuel while they're in.
Okay. No, I'm talking about domestic flight, the part of it that affects us as ordinary
Very
people.
nice try.
Because NCA is even saying because of jet fuel, they will shut down the aviation
that's another
sector.
story. Yes.
So what if somebody takes a risk and say, oh, we can manage? In Nigeria, we are always managing.
This is what happened.
We'll manage
This is what happened. They tried to manage that fuel to go to where they were going. How did that happen?
Okay, I just want to make a correction. When I was talking about President Clinton, he actually went to Yale. I said Harvard. Apologies.
Well, all right.
He went to Yale.
Well, let's take this story. Highlighting Tiago Isola, a Portuguese boy who is fluent in the Yoruba language. Tiago was brought to Nigeria by his mother at a tender age and has been using his social media platform to encourage Yoruba people to speak their language. While in a recent interview with the BBC Yoruba, Tiago shared his love for the language and culture. Let's take a look.
I'm from Nigeria. I'm from Portugal. So, but I'm one of my dumewa. Ni mami gbé mi wá láti Portugal sí Nigeria. Wọ́n ṣe pẹ̀lú Aláàfin of Ọ̀yọ́ as cultural ambassador. So, mo lọ school ní Ọ̀yọ́ State Secondary School. So, but mo wá di Nigeria. Tí mami mo wá sí Nigeria. Nínú ààfin gangan náà ti sọ mi ní Ìṣọ̀lá. Oríkì mi Ìṣọ̀lá. Nínú ààfin gangan náà ti fún mi. Àwọn pé àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá ni mo bá rìn. So, mo grab díẹ̀ pẹ̀lú gbogbo wọn. Bó ṣe ń sọ, mo kàn grab ẹ̀. Láti school náà mo ṣe Yorùbá school. So, láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọgọ́ ni mo ti grab àwọn Yorùbá díẹ̀. Mi ò ní parọ́ bọ̀ èdè Yorùbá ó dùn lẹ́nu. Ó dùn láti sọ, láti gbọ́ náà. So, mo kàn like ẹ̀. Even tí ma fẹ́ sọ Òyìnbó, mi ò ní sọ. Tẹ́ bá béèrè lọ́wọ́ àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ mi, Yorùbá ni mo máa ń sọ jù. Ó máa ń dùn lẹ́nu mi, mo máa ń sọ. Àwọn èèyàn máa ń sọ pé Tiago kì í sọ Òyìnbó. Yorùbá nìkan àwọn ni ìmílẹ̀ bó ṣe wà nìyẹn. So àwọn èèyàn tán máa ń rí mi pé mo máa ń sọ Yorùbá. Àwọn times mi ti máa lọ lórí títì, àwọn yóò pè mí pé Òyìnbó wà. Màá ní ẹ kúrò lẹ́ màá kí wọn. Wọ́n á ní kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀? Ó ń sọ Yorùbá lẹ́nu mọ́ ní bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wọ́n á ní báwo ló ṣe jẹ́? Màá sọ fún wọn déédéé. So almost gbogbo àti máa ti lọ lórí títì tán bá ti rí mi pé àwọn Òyìnbó ní sọ Yorùbá yìí. Even tí máa fẹ́ lọ ra nǹkan, wọ́n ní tí máa ní ẹ fún mi ní sọ́kù 50. Wọ́n ní Òyìnbó fẹ́ jẹ sọ́kù. Wọ́n ní sọ́kù àti gàrí máa ń dùn.
Oh, I love this story. But before we discuss, let's just round up what's trending with this video of a Nigerian-born Delta Airlines captain who stunned passengers on a flight from Atlanta to Lagos when he announced that he was piloting the plane to Nigeria for the first time, speaking in Yoruba language. Let's take a look.
It's a special day for me as a Nigerian-born citizen. It will be my first time piloting a plane to Nigeria. I appreciate everybody joining us on this flight as a milestone for myself. Today's flight time is going to take us about 10 hours, 30 minutes, and it should be mostly smooth flights. Perhaps we might have some rough rides coming out of Atlanta because of the weather out there. We all see it's raining. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this flight with us. On that note, long day àti lágbà Akinyo. Delta 54 láti ìlú Atlanta lọ sí ìlú Èkó. Ìrìnàjò ó gbà wá níbi wákàtí 10 àti àbọ̀. Láyọ̀ la gúnlẹ̀ o. For the people waiting back there, no, my name now, I just say make a greet with now for tonight. About 10 hours, 30 minutes for the flight. Want to sit back, relax, and enjoy. That's right.
Well, my Yoruba brothers and sister, I am so proud of you guys. You guys are doing well with, bringing up your children, teaching them how to speak Yoruba. I'm so proud of you.
That was very nice.
Anyway, language is about identity.
Yeah.
It's about culture.
Absolutely.
When people listen to their own language, they immediately identify
Love
with
it.
But where the challenge lies is what one scholar has written about English dominance and the crisis of the mother tongue. I think, I don't immediately remember the names of the scholars. At a point in Ife, University of Ife, they had a 6-year program on the mother tongue. People don't teach their children to speak the mother tongue.
No, they don't.
They say it's vernacular.
Yeah.
They say don't speak in vernacular. But you see the Portuguese guy, but there's no time to talk about the mother tongue.
Thank you guys. You all have a great weekend.
You too, Oji.
Thank you.
That's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you next week.